7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Clerk Cody, roll call of the board, please.
Supervisor Milky,
Here.
Clerk Cody here, Treasurer Rice,
Here.
Trustee Bills,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Here.
all are here.
Thank you very much. We have a packed agenda here in front of us tonight, but I'd be happy to take any motions regarding the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the moving of the presentations, which is 5A to 12, manager comments, and also 14, which is our closed session, to be moved in between 9 and 10, the consent agenda and new business.
Support.
We have a motion by Rice, support by Bills. Discussion? Seeing none, motion to approve the agenda with 2 modifications. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. And with that, that leads us to, we have 2 public hearings this evening, both related to DDAs, the East and West. I am a member of the Economic Development Authority. I serve on that committee, and I have to say I'm really proud of the work that group of people has done this last year, and the assistance that we got from CIB, a consultant that we hired to help with that. And so this evening brings us to a process where we have to have public hearings on it, essentially. And so we've had plenty of public notices posted in the paper throughout the districts. I know staff and members have been in communication with residents and businesses. And so I'm looking forward to this opportunity give the public a chance to give us additional input. Manager, do you have any additional comments you'd like to?
No, thank you, I do not.
All right, with that, regarding the East DDA District Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan, we'll open the public hearing at 7:02. If anybody would like to speak to the public and/or the board, please state your name and address for the record. And we'll open this public hearing at 7:02 p.m. Just turned 7:03 p.m. Please.
Hello, Jim Horton, 3089 Hunters Trail, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Since we're into the public hearing part, I can actually talk about this, Brian. The county is going to put it in front of our finance administration, I believe, the first meeting in November. I was forwarded a copy of what the plans are. Not speaking for the board tonight, just speaking myself as a taxpayer and also as your county commissioner. I think this is a good thing. I think this shows an example of the township and the county working together. When I first got on the board, the county and the township was engaged in a lawsuit in regards to the DDA, and I thought that was just a ridiculous thing to be going on. And it got settled, thank goodness. And now that cooler heads have prevailed, different boards, different administrators, different supervisors, different manager. I think times are different, times have changed. We work very well together, open communications, and I think the agreement that the county will be signing with the township, well, I shouldn't say it will be signing, should be signing with the township, is an example of that. And again, I can comment. If I'm up here, you want me to continue? I mean, I can talk about other things too now, or do you want me to just comment?
Let's leave that for your public comment.
Perfect.
That's good.
I'll wait for that. Again, I think it's a good thing with the county. It looks like we're going to maintain the split that's been going to 75-25, and anything tax increments will be 0 in the rest of the development DDAs. I think that's a good thing, again. So county should be in favor of it. Again, plan is it's going to go in front of the finance administration and then to the full board. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Holden.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to address regarding the East DDA? Appreciate your comments. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public hearing for the updated East DDA plan at 7:05 PM. And, excuse me? With that, we'll open up the public hearing for the updated West DDA, that's west, not east, West DDA District Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan. Again, if you choose to come forward and speak in front of the public, state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up the West DDA public hearing at 7:05 PM. Seeing nobody jumping up here. Last chance. Someone coming in?
Yes.
We just opened the public hearing for the West DDA, if it's something you would like to, if you're here for. Just want you to have the opportunity, because I was about to close the public hearing, if that's what you're going to be here for.
No, we're good.
Okay. So with no one's coming forward, we'll close the West DDA public hearing at 7:06 PM. All right, with that, I made an error, Chairman Horton.
Horton.
Excuse me. My apologies.
He makes a lot better beer than I do.
If you have county business to describe to this board, then that should have been part of the presentation. If there's no objection, I'll allow you to do that now.
Yep, that's
Fine.
fine.
Goodness gracious. Just real quick, I won't keep you. Brian told me I can take as long as I want, but trust me, it's not going to be long. It's nice to see the faces here in front of me instead of looking like a Hollywood Square scene. So I like to see that. Dr. Bills has been representing your board very well in our county meetings. She always has, everything she says is spot on. Everything she said, she's perfect representation of your board.
Thank you, sir.
As you know, and I think it was in the paper, I can't remember, it all runs in together. The county has hired a new county administrator controller, Nicole Frost. Nicole's been a deputy county administrator controller, I believe, for the last 4 or 6 years. I can't remember, it's late tonight. It's going to be a smooth transition. Nicole filled in for Margaret McAvoy, our current county administrator controller, last year when Margaret was off on medical leave. And I thought she did a standout job. And I look forward to working with her as a board member and, possible chairperson, you never know. But I think she's going to fit right in and hit the ground running, and we shouldn't miss a beat. County passed a $24,437,310 and change budget, pulling out some out of the unreserved fund balance, but currently we sit around 10 million plus in that. That's a pretty hefty fund balance for the county. And as always, the budget is just a living, breathing document. Things go in, things go out. Sometimes it seems like we budget a lot out of the unreserved fund balance, and then we end up coming to the positives. So that's a good thing. Again, though, there was a lot of big one-ticket items. Some of that was used with ARP money, some, everything. County gave a 2.5% raise to their employees. No increase in health care this year. That was good. Let's see, update that kind of affects Union Township, but affects everyone in the county, is the Sheriff's Department and the Correctional Facility, how that's going. As you know, we moved the location from the Somerton and Remus Road to the Remus Road in Isabella. Kind of on, if you think about it, it is on this right across the street to the right of Maury Courts. That's where the new location is going to be. It's been a long, ongoing process. It just seems like it's going and going and going, and we haven't put shovels in the ground yet, and that's when the fun really is going to start. So next Tuesday, we come in front of the Planning Commission. I do intend to attend that meeting. I'm going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chairman Hope for that meeting, and it's very important that the county and the township work together on this. And I think we have shown, and the township shown, very good working relationship, and I think only going forward it's going to improve. again, I don't know exactly when we're gonna put shovels in the ground. I had a meeting last week with the $41.5 million USDA loan, and they just don't like to give out money without jumping through a bunch of hoops and filling out a bunch of paperwork. You just can't walk in there with a couple duffel bags and walk out with $41.5 million. It just doesn't work that way. But that's moving forward also. Again, in the spirit of cooperation, ARP money, I think the township, the city, the county, all the townships, everything, I think we need to look at doing some good, maybe working with the community foundation, some other nonprofits, things like that. Anything that we can do to benefit this community is going to be a good thing. This is a, you know, it's, I don't want to say it's a one-time thing, but if we have to make lemonade out of a lemon, that's a good way to do it. And, you know, no one expected COVID and what it's done, but, so. And that's really all I got. I mean, I was going to talk about the DDA, but I already done that. So does anybody have, you guys, this is just comment section, so you guys can't really ask questions to me, which is good. I like that.
Well, it's
Do,
presentation.
you go
You're
ahead.
in presentation.
Yeah.
Presentations, you can do that, though. I'm ready. And
I just want to say, I hope we can work together and do something great with the ARPA funds. I think it'd be absolutely awesome.
yeah, I think, too, if you look, I mean, the very first thing when you get the county got 6.5 million times 2. And the very first thing when it's like new money into your wallet, you go, okay, I'm gonna spend it. And then you just gotta say, no, slow down, let's take it easy. Let's just hold on here and try to figure what's best for the community. And I really do. I think that's gonna be probably the focus in 2022, is really honing in on what we can do. I mean, my goal this year as chairperson, I said it right out loud, was getting this jail going. I mean, it's a monster project. Trying not to involve directly, and I say directly because it's all taxpayer money, even if it comes from the turbines. That money is still, could be used for something other than building the Sheriff's Department correctional facility, but that is in our plans to use that money for that. So I agree that I think 2022 is going to be a focus on the ARP monies. So okay, well, thank you all. You know,
Thanks for
let's
coming
get back
tonight.
here. It's kind of weird being on this, and actually, I think I did say aye on one of your things. There. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we've finished presentations and hearings. That brings us to item 7 on the agenda, public comment. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to address the public and/or board, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we will open up public comment at 7:13.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
My name is John Zhang, 623 Hopkins, Mount Pleasant. I'm the chairman of the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreation Authority. As you're aware, the life of the Aquatic Authority has been limited by you and the other participating entities to 3 years. The Rec Authority's task before those 3 years is up is to get the issue on the ballot and let the voters decide if they want an aquatic center, the community pool. The Rec Authority has prepared a budget and is asking for $10,000 from Union Township. The Rec Authority has asked the same amount from the other participating entities, which will give the authority $30,000 for startup funds. The city, the school board have already approved our request. The authority was formed without funding to accomplish its task, and I ask that the Union Township Board approve that $10,000 for the Aquatic Recreation Authority. You've been given a copy of the startup budget and our outline where we propose expenditures. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But if it's public comment and you can't ask questions, that's okay. But on behalf of the Rec Board, I thank you for hearing our request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for serving on that board.
Yes.
Well,
All right, anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment at 7:14. And that takes us to report boards and comments. Item 8A, current list of boards and commissions. I'll just lift up again, we still have the ZBA slot that we need to fill, and EDA slot. And then we'll have an upcoming planning commission early next year. And I believe that's our current list of openings on our boards. So continue to think about your neighbors and friends and family, and who might be able to serve on those committees, boards. Any other comments on that?
I didn't notice, did the PC pick anybody else for sidewalk and pathways?
They won't do that until.
Until after he's
till that-
gone.
Till that time, yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember when he gave his official leave date or whatever, so, okay.
Stick around till the end of the year then?
Yeah.
End of the
Till
year?
I think it's February of
February.
22.
Oh,
Yep.
Oh,
perfect. I will
Okay, till his
write
term
that
is
down.
up.
Term is up.
Okay,
All right, with
thank
that,
you.
that takes us to item 8B on our agenda, board member reports. I think last time I started with trustee Brown. This time we'll start on my right with trustee Howe.
Okay, I don't want to take a lot of time up. I went to Isabella County Road Commission meeting on the 23rd of September. They talked a lot about their budget, so they were approving their budget. Branding is done for the year, obviously, we saw that, one of our bills, we had to pay the rest of that. They were talking about how truck parts are hard to get, like 9 to 10 months for truck parts. Meridian Road is complete, we've gotten that update. Obviously, this was 2 weeks ago, so, I mean, we've gotten the update since that. And then, the other main thing they keep stressing is they want to know what gravel roads everybody's gonna do, at least how many we're gonna do. If we're gonna do 4, we should let them know right away. I know what the,
We did.
right, okay. Let's just call that good then. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they approved, but, mainly it was budget stuff.
Clerk Cody? And I don't have anything to add today.
I've got nothing today.
Planning Commission hasn't met since our last meeting, so next meeting.
Trustee Bills?
It's not my liaison job, but trustee Hauk and Clerk Cody and I had 2 election commission meetings where we verified the authenticity of the ballot machines, and it worked out great. So I just want to let everybody know that we're going to have a great election in November.
Perfect.
Trustee Brown?
Yes, I'll make this real quick. I went to 2, this is all Zoom meeting for the city commission meetings, September 27th and October 11th. I run September 27th really quick, just a few things. Quite a few things on the agenda, 18 numbered items on the agenda, and I'll just briefly touch. We have a sworn-in new police officer, Brandon Crawford, came over from the Sheriff's Department to the city police. So if you see him out there, if you guys know him, welcome him over to the city police. Green Scene will be doing all the downtown sidewalk snow removal again this year. They did get that contract. That's all I'm gonna really discuss. Everything else, and you can see these on YouTube, any of these meetings. On October 11th, Monday, there was a few things just want to touch on. Mr. John Zane spoke at the city commission meeting about the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Recreational Center, and both of the other entities are on board. So now it's Union Township's board time to consider that. Also, very important, Mr. Loria Paul, he did a presentation for the mental health services assistance. And it's a RISE program for 1 year. It's a pilot program. And what they do is they bring, I may not have all the information here because a lot of this I wasn't able to write down rather quickly, but they bring one person right into the department as a mental health service person that will actually be able to go out and work with the police officers, work with the community, and you get to know, they base and really get base relationships and a relationship built. I think this program is going to be a great program. I'm sure Mr. Maine may be looking at this in the county. I hope he is. If not, I'm sure these guys all talk, but this mental health service program that the city is looking at, this pilot program, I think is exceptional. Maybe something that we even want to consider for some of our money. Maybe. I'm just throwing it out there. We'll see how this program works. But I'm really going to keep an eye on that. I think it's a great program. And they gave Manager Ridley a bonus on her way out. So I was excited to see that too, and they all voted unanimously for that. That's all I have.
Thank you for that. With that, that moves us to consent agenda. I will point out that there's a few items in there that, actually, I believe two, that provided you make the motion to approve the consent agenda, or support it, that you're actually authorizing expenditures that, I'm assuming you reviewed your packet and you know what's in there, but I just want to make sure that you understand that you're to be expected to sign the motion and approval of those resolutions. But I'd be happy to entertain any motions for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the, accept the consent, it's the consent, whatever, you know what I mean.
Support. I'll support her.
All right. We have a motion by Bill, support by Brown. Trustee Theron, I believe you had warrants this month?
I did. To the best of my ability, I saw no issues.
So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda boy, I'm having trouble with that too, consent agenda.
Yes.
As presented. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. And that moves us to item, I'll call it 9.5, which is closed session. And with that, I have to ask everybody essentially to leave, provided this board wishes to do so. So I'd be happy to entertain motions if there is one regarding closed session.
I move to close, I'm sorry, you go ahead, Lisa. I don't have it printed out, whatever you have there.
I just read the blue, right?
Yeah.
Make a motion regarding, or to go into closed session regarding the case of James and Jerry Zalad versus Charter Township Union, now pending in Isabella County Circuit Court Case number 20-016281-CK, and concern citizens of Union Township versus Charter Township of Union, now pending in Isabella County Circuit Court Case 20-016292-CZ. I move to go into closed session for the following reasons. One, to consult with the township attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with specific pending litigation, because an open meeting would have a detrimental financial effect on the litigation and or settlement position of the township. And two, under Section 8H of Open Meetings Act, to consider written material from the township attorney that is exempt from disclosure by Section 13(1)G of the Freedom of Information Act.
Support.
Motion by Cody, I heard support by Rice first.
Yep.
This is a roll call vote. Any discussion on this? Would you take the roll call vote, please, on the
Sup-
motion to go into closed session?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
And with that, the motion to go into closed session passes unanimously. And with that, I hate to ask you all to leave because I'm really thrilled you're here to join us, but we need to close the doors. We had a motion to go back into open session, and we'll resume that at 8:01 PM. That brings us to new business item 10A on the agenda. This is regarding first reading for the East DDA development. Oh, let me do this. I'll recap that. New business item 10A. This is first reading for the East DDA Development Plan and Tax Increment Financing Plan Amendatory Ordinance. Manager, do you have anything you'd like to introduce on this, or?
This is, the action you're taking tonight is just to introduce it and hold a first reading. It's the first step in an ordinance adoption process. This is to amend the East DDA Development Plan and associated TIF plan. Those are set to expire under your current ordinance at the end of this year, 12/31/21. CIB or CBI?
CIB.
CIB was here a couple meetings ago and went through in detail the development plan and implementation plan, so I'm not going to go over any of that tonight. The next meeting would be a second reading, and at that point, you would be being asked to adopt the ordinance. Thank you.
And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any motions if this board would so be inclined with regards to a first reading of the East DDA Development Plan.
I make a motion to approve that.
I'll support.
Could you repeat the motion for me, please?
Approve, I hope we're on the right page here.
Go to
Approval of
page
the
nine.
participation agreement with the, pardon?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Approval of the participation agreement with the Economic Development Authority, EDA, for Phase 2 funding of James, is this the right one?
No,
Okay.
this is regards to first reading, so this
Well, I
is
can't know where the heck it
public
is.
action.
Page
91?
91, at the very bottom of your agenda packet.
Jesus. All right, somebody else can read it then. I'm not there, sorry.
I'll make a motion to introduce and conduct a first reading for the East DDA Development Plan and Tax Increment Finance Plan Amendatory Ordinance.
Support.
So a motion by Rice, support by Brown. Discussion? I'll just add that I appreciate Chairman Horton's comments tonight. I know he and I have had quite a few number of conversations through this journey, and I appreciate his willingness to work with our township, and it's been a pleasure to work with him and make sure that we get something that, what I believe is really good for our community. So seeing no further discussion, am I correct? Clerk Cody, this is not a roll call, correct? I believe.
Correct. We can do it as a roll call, it doesn't hurt.
I didn't think it was.
It's not.
All right, so with motion is to have the first reading of the East DDA Development Plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion for first reading of the East DDA Development Plan passes unanimously. And with that, that takes us to item 10B on our agenda. Very similar, with the exception that this is regarding the West DDA. And I'd be happy to entertain any motions that someone may want on this.
I make a motion to introduce, or to, I don't know, it says introduce and conduct a first reading for the West DDA Development Plan and Tax Increment Finance Plan Amendatory Ordinance.
Support.
Motion by Bills, support by Brown. Did you have something, Manager?
No.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to introduce and conduct the first reading for the West DDA Development Plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion for the first reading of the West DDA Development Plan passes unanimously. That moves us to item 10C on our agenda. This is in regards to the Vector truck that we've had discussions with this board over the past year.
Page 147.
Yeah,
Oh.
and I'd be happy to hand this over to our manager for
Okay.
any introduction you might have.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. The packet materials for this item begin on page 193 of your agenda packet. We're asking the board to consider approval of the purchase of a 2021 combination single-engine, dual-stage sewer cleaner, hydrostatic-driven vacuum system mounted on a heavy-duty chassis. This is the Vector truck. It's the big machine that you see, with the big tube on the back of it, and a lot of other piping and stuff attached to it. From Jack Duhaney Company in the amount of
Okay.
$420,898. You may recall this was originally part of a budget recommendation for FY '21. There was some additional discussion that occurred over a period of time and some questions answered. It came back to the board as it had been, because the original budget was adopted without this item in it. It came back to the board, I want to say probably in February, to give consideration to amend your budget to provide funding for this. The board did that in a vote of 7-0. So then over the last 7 months or so, the Public Service Department, specifically Director Kim Smith and her team, and I'm gonna let her go through that process a little bit. But I think the main lead or the main support Kim was having was provided by John Bebo. And the two of them, and maybe others, they put together a in-depth specification document, several pages long, all the things that were needed to be part of this vehicle. They solicited bids. They had demonstrations out in the field with the equipment, and I believe we received 6 bids, and the recommendation is in the second page of your agenda item. It is the low bid financially. It's also, I want to emphasize, a responsive bid to all of our requirements and the specifications. I would like to acknowledge Trustee Brown and his insights. He has experience with these kind of vehicles, so we did use his knowledge throughout the process. And I think I will give Director Smith an opportunity to just describe the process a little bit more.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having John and I here tonight. John Bebo. For those of you who haven't met John, I think a few of you may not have. When we did the tour, I think John was out on COVID quarantine, so he came here tonight because John worked a lot on this project. We worked together, but John was really the lead on what this Vector truck needs to have in order to accommodate the township's needs today and into the future. So we spent several months actually talking to vendors who provide this equipment, other municipalities who use this equipment, vendors that we use, for instance, Plumbers Environmental, who does a lot of our manhole relining and did a lot of our televising and cleaning. We've worked with them for years. We talked to people from that company, people from Perceptive Controls, who's also done similar work, and other vendors who use these machines on a regular basis to come up with an RFP and a specification for the equipment. Once that was completed, John and I spent quite a bit of time talking about it. We also had the companies bring trucks to the township to take a look at them, both before and after we received bids on this equipment, and use that information that we gathered to put the RFP together. It was bid out competitively, it was bid out in the township's normal competitive format, as well as we signed up for a cooperative called Sourcewell, who awards contracts based on competitive bidding for municipalities. So we actually bid it out in both ways in hopes that we'd get more bids, which I think it did, because some of the bids one of the contractors we received bids from was actually a Sourcewell vendor, was the approved vendor, and that is actually who we are recommending. And we were able to get a discount based on that competitive bidding. So we did the competitive bids, the bids came in, and then we spent several weeks going through those bids and analyzing each one of them to make sure that the equipment is what we wanted. Once we were through with that, we then, the city of Clare recently purchased a new Vector truck, which was very similar to what we were looking at in size and make. And so they had received theirs about 3 weeks before, and John and I went down there, as well as Mike Deering from the wastewater plant, because this machine will be used there as well. We went to Clare and looked at their equipment and talked to them about what they thought of it, how they liked the vendor. They bought theirs from Doheny as well, and they had very favorable things to say. So we felt comfortable recommending tonight the purchase of this equipment from Doheny. The piece of equipment is what we will need today and into the future. So that's where the recommendation came from. And if you have any questions, John and I are here to answer them tonight. And I, again, want to thank John for all of his hard work on this, and his crew, because they actually brought the trucks here, took them out into our collection system, and used them. And in addition, one of the reasons we wanted to go with Doheny, we did buy our equipment we have now from Doheny years and years ago, but they also offer some training where we can send our employees to their factory, where Vector trucks are made, and they can participate in training in the factory along with the training. We have 3 days worth of training in our RFP where they will come here, but we will be able to send personnel to the factory to their training sessions in order to learn how to maintain the equipment, use the equipment, all the little ins and outs. And we talked to Claire, the gentleman from Claire, about that, because they were getting ready to send their mechanics there. So they were talking about the fact that they had a Vector truck for years, and they've already learned things that they weren't doing with that Vector truck that they should have been. So it was kind of interesting. Yeah. So, as I said, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. I can answer some, and probably the more technical ones about the truck itself. John's here for that.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the comment about the training and the ability, especially because this is Northville, Michigan companies, which is awesome.
Right.
To be buying this essentially
Yeah.
locally.
And they've been in business a long time. So.
Yeah, and so that's awesome, but I have no doubt that it will be well-maintained based on my experience of the facility tour that we got. Our staff at Union Township take care of the equipment that they have, and they should be proud.
They do.
Well, I think
They
it
do a
should
great
be
job.
also safer and more efficient for the staff that uses this equipment, so I think that that's where we want to be.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Is that double axle or just single?
Single.
Same thing as Claire.
Same as Claire.
Yeah. Jake Potter, was that his name? Or Jacob Potter?
Luke Potter.
Luke
I can't
Potter.
remember.
Yeah.
Because he showed me their truck and everything.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was up
They're
there.
almost identical.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay,
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one additional question,
Yeah.
sorry. So I did ask our manager this question in a phone call earlier in the week, but I thought it's worth sharing so you hear it. And Mark alluded to this in some of his comments, but I asked the question, did we settle on the $420,000 one, even though we really wanted the $430,000 version? Option, we settled on option 4 as a recommendation versus option 1. And I wanted to make sure, we had budgeted $425, I believe. And were we shorting ourselves at all? Wish we really wanted the $430, but didn't want to come back and ask for another $5,000. And the response that I got from our manager, and I'm assuming from what you alluded to in your comments, that the option 4 was the one that met our needs, correct?
Yes, that is,
And we
it
didn't
meets our
need-
needs. We did not, if we felt that the more expensive one would have been a better unit for us, or would have had more benefit, it's not a lot more money. We would have
Right.
come back and asked you to approve that, even though it was over the budget. And we have done that in the past, when, you know, something comes back and for some reason that one is better than the other, but no, we did not feel that way. And I think John can, I don't want to speak for John, but, no, but we spent a lot of time going over this equipment, so.
It is such a sizable purchase that another 5,000 is just a drop, really, you know, but we didn't feel that way at all.
Okay, yeah, well, I wanted to ask the question and know.
And we've gone through that type of exercise where we had a budget, we put out bids, we got quotes back, and we thought it made sense to go through a process of essentially changing our specs to negotiate a lower price on something. We did not go through that exercise on this.
Any further questions for,
Well, that one
Mark?
up in Claire too, he thought that theirs was gonna be 430,000.
in getting us to this point?
We're hopeful to have it approved and wait 240 days.
Jeff and I talked one day when we, I think it was you. No, maybe it was just you and I. Where are you gonna park it?
It is gonna be the one barn that we looked at that day.
Yeah, cut the,
It fits.
can you cut that out a little bit up above the?
Actually, it's gonna
It's gonna
fit.
fit, but I know you said it was gonna be closed.
Yeah, it was gonna be close, so that's why we kinda had to link.
Well, there was about a foot they could take.
That's how close it's gonna be.
Put a taller door.
We actually had Claire's mechanic climb up on
Yeah.
top of the backer and actually put a tape measure to it. Me and Kim wanted to see.
In FY '21, and with, assuming that it does get approved tonight, we won't be taking delivery till sometime in the summer of 2022.
Yep.
So the budget mechanics will require that that money will not be spent this year. You'll end up seeing it again in FY '22, because that's when the cash is expected to go out the door.
Are chips gonna be available
Oh,
Are we, can I make a motion?
Absolutely.
I would like to make a motion, approval of the purchase of the 2021 combination single axle engine dual stage sewer cleaner jetter with hydrostatic driven vacuum system mounted on a heavy duty chassis Vector truck from Jack Doheny Company in the amount of $420,898.00.
Support.
Motion by Brown, support by Bills.
Yeah.
Further discussion?
I would like to say something.
Please.
I think it's understated how much these guys worked on this. I'm very happy to be involved, and thank you, Mark and Kim, for inviting me, and John inviting me to be involved in this process. It was an awesome process, and it was an awesome way for me, as a trustee, to see the intergovernment working of how the staff works. I just appreciate being involved in the system. It was very, very thorough, what Kim and John went through for this board, for the information for this board, and for the community. They didn't take this on looking just through their eyes. They looked at everybody sitting here and everybody in this community for the next 20 to 25 years. And I appreciate that, John, because John just has a few years left with us. And I tried, when I was negotiating with these guys, I tried to make sure John was on for another 15 years, but he just won't stick with me on that. But they did an outstanding job. And again, I just thank you for letting me be involved in that. And a very, very thorough process. I appreciate it. That's all I have to say.
Any other trustees? I'm kind of excited about it, so. Seeing no one else wanting the floor, this is not roll call, correct? I just want to make sure.
Correct.
It is not.
Maybe we should, just because it's $420,000.
No.
I'd be happy to do roll call if anybody would like it.
Let's do it.
Let's do roll call. So, to be clear, the motion is to purchase the vac truck for $420,898, just for the record.
Yes.
Yes.
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes?
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hope,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
Motion for purchase of the Vector truck has been approved unanimously by the board.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Board, and thank you, John and Kim.
I feel bad the gentleman left.
Looks like the end.
All right, let's see, we're finishing up new business,
Oh,
unless anybody else has any new business at this point. I'm just looking. I had a feeling there might be, but maybe not.
I would like to make a motion. I would like to move to authorize the township manager to proceed with finalization of the proposed settlement of the concerned citizens litigation in the form and manner discussed during closed session, including conveyance of the proposed settlement agreement discussed during the closed session to opposing counsel, execution of the settlement agreement if accepted by opposing counsel, and prior to any such execution, the making of any changes to the settlement agreement which are non-substantive and/or typographical in nature, should the township manager and township council agree that such changes are necessary in the best interests of the township.
Support?
I'll support.
I've got a motion by Therian. I heard trustee Bills first.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
do it as a roll call.
It's good for the rec. Yeah, it'd be good. I'll ask for roll call. But anybody, any further discussion on that? Clerk Cody, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hope,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
Great.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave and Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 11 under agenda, extended public comments. Extended public comments restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue.
Yeah, just left too. So,
Yeah,
I know, I felt
wonder if he's
bad.
outside, you know, we'll see.
Sure.
Who is that?
There was a gentleman
Gentlemen, I don't
that
know.
stayed
I think
and,
he just wanted to hear the reading of
The-
the,
Back truck?
no release unless needed.
Oh.
okay.
Well, why would he stay through closed session then? 'Cause we already did that.
Right,
just
we did the
in
public hearing.
He was staying for the reading. I think he was wanting to learn more. I think his company sent him here. That's what he said out.
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the plan.
all right.
He's already gone.
Huh?
Okay.
He's already gone.
Oh, okay. All right, so that extended public comments restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to speak to the public and/or address this board, please state your name and address for the record. With that, we'll open up extended public comment at 8:25 PM.
They all left.
We'll give it 5 minutes.
What? Really?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
I didn't think we'd be here at 8:25 already. I figured it might be like 10:30. But seeing no one coming forward, last chance. We did have quite an attendance tonight, which I was thankful for, but
Yes.
no extended public comment, so we'll close that at 8:25 PM. And that brings us to final board member, I'm sorry, manager's comments, item 12, which also includes budget presentation.
Yep.
So, thank you. A couple,
Consent agenda? That's why he said, don't forget that when we approve the consent agenda, we're approving all those monies.
Yes.
so while Tara's passing out those items, before I get into that, just want to comment that the cleanup day was very successful a couple weeks ago. Had good weather. There will be a report provided to the board in terms of volumes that were collected and the various categories and the number of volunteers and that kind of thing. The vehicular traffic was similar to what it was in 2019. It was a little bit below what we had in 2020, which I primarily attribute to people were in their house all year in 2020, looking for stuff to do, so they cleaned up, and we had more activity last year. So I wanted to mention that. The hydrant flushing began, it's either about to begin or began just in the very near past, so that's going on. All the notices for that have been sent. And so that's all I have in terms of miscellaneous comments.
Thank you. Any questions on that before we move to the budget? All right.
And then I did want to take a few minutes to talk about the FY 2022 budget recommendation. You all received an electronic copy of that yesterday. It is at the printer being printed, so you'll have a binder tab. Hopefully by the end of the week, we'll let you know when that comes in. All the information that I'm going to go over tonight, and it's going to be at a pretty high level, is in the budget book. But we do have a few board members that are still relatively new in all these processes. The board went through, you all adopted your FY21 budget. You did that within probably 2 weeks of your election or 3 weeks of your election, so you're kind of thrown in. And so some of this may be a bit repetitive in terms of process to some of the board members, but not to the new board members. What was distributed to you a few minutes ago are just the things I'm going to comment on. I'm not even going to comment on all of these, but in terms of the procedural steps to approve your budget, you effectively have the recommended budget yesterday. We have this month, November, as much as December as you may need to study it, meet about it. The budget by rule has to be adopted by 12/31 of '21. So that's our hard stop date. You will see items on your upcoming meeting agendas, November 10th. The board will be asked to set a date for the public hearing, so you'll have that in front of you at your November 10th date meeting. We'll publish the hearing notice in the paper that Sunday, the 14th. You will hold then your public hearing, if all this goes to the expected schedule, at your meeting on November 23rd. And then you have one board meeting in December. If you're all done with your deliberations and your study and all that, is when I would plan on assuming, that's when I would assume the budget would be approved at your December meeting. There are just a few fee changes compared to a year ago. They're outlined here. There's a couple in the Community and Economic Development Department having to do with escrow deposits so that we are receiving enough money up front for our expenditures that we incur throughout that process. Any balance remaining in the escrow deposit that's not spent on the appropriate things is returned to the applicant. That's true for rezoning applications and zoning text amendments. We are increasing the deposit for Jamison Hall rental slightly to $250 from $200. We put a lot of resources into that facility, so we think it's appropriate to increase that deposit a little bit. Our water and sewer fees, they're all listed here. I will say that all those fee recommendations are coming out of the cost of service study that we had done 2 years ago. And so at that time, some of you may recall, the Sewer side of things, we're expected to increase 5.1% over the next few years. That's what's being recommended this year. It's the same increase as the prior year. On the water service, the part that's part of your quarterly bill is recommended to go up 4.9% is what I want to say. Again, that follows the cost of service study. Several other rates in here that are more miscellaneous in nature and as needed, again, are following that study. In your budget book, and where I want to go next is at a high level. So the next documents that are in your packet are some graphs. The first couple are historical graphs. So you'll see that state shared revenue, you'll see that trend as it's gone for the last 10 years. State shared revenue is your largest revenue source, and that has been steadily climbing until 2019, where it has flattened out. And I think that would be attributable to the economy slowing down with COVID. We were all surprised that even in FY20 that revenue sharing didn't go down like we were expecting and talking about. And revenue sharing from the state is primarily there's a constitutional part and what I call legislative part, subject to appropriation more. It's a distribution of the sales tax, the 6% sales tax. There's a formula in the Constitution that distributes that primarily based on population to communities across the state. So that's the source of that state shared revenue, is the sales tax. Census results will probably likely impact that as we move forward. It'll be a little hard to ascertain how much change, because you can still have an increase in state shared revenue even with a reduction in census numbers if there's more if there's more sales tax revenue being collected at the state level because the economy is booming or something like that. So, but that's the trend there. The taxable value, there's some historical data there. This is the largest source of your revenue. It's the property taxes that we collect. Those taxes are based on something called taxable value, and that's coming out of Proposition A that was approved by the state electorate through a constitutional amendment back in 1992. But you can see how that has grown over the years. Some years has declined compared to the prior years. The increases are pretty small. The Property Tax Act basically says that unless it's new development, your taxable value cannot increase faster than the rate of inflation. And you kind of see that here. If you look at the average over this 10-year period that's depicted here, our taxable value has gone up 1.45% on average over the last 10 years. So that it's not, from a municipal finance perspective, Proposition A and Headley are issues. Don't need to get into that subject, but it does constrain our revenue growth a bit compared to the way it used to work. The next graph has to do with fund balance. You often hear the administration, whether it's myself or the finance director, talk about fund balance. The bar chart portion of this graph is the nominal dollar amount of the fund balance. It's been going up. In 2013, our fund balance was approximately $2.5 million, and it was approximately 225% of our operating expenses, which is the blue line on the right axis. And so even though the nominal value of the dollars has gone up every year from 213 to 221, as a percent of your operating expenses, it's fluctuated. Generally gone up. It peaked in 2019, where the fund balance as a percent of operating expenses was 300%. You could have effectively run the township for the next 3 years without collecting $1 of revenue. That's what a 300% of operating expenses means
At the same service level.
at the same service level. That's pretty high, and so that has been being drawn down over the last few years, even though the purple still goes up, that blue line's going down. The FY '22 recommended budget will have a projected fund balance at the end of the year of 176% of annual operating expenses, which means you could operate 2023 and half 24, if all this became reality, at your same current service levels without collecting any revenue,
21 months.
21 months. So I think that's important information. The next several graphs are when we begin to look forward. The last few, we've looked back. A few years ago, we started producing the finance department some long-term projections. And so we've done that for the general fund. We're projecting out to 2031. It's 10 years. You have those in your budget book for the general fund, the fire fund, the East DDA fund, and the West DDA fund. And all the assumptions that are going into these projections are in your at the bottom left of the graph. We're projecting taxable value to increase 1% per year over this 10-year span is one of our assumptions. State revenue going up 2%, salary and wages going up 3%, healthcare benefits going up 6%. So, we have different increases for different assumptions for different parts of the expense side of the budget. And so the point now that I want to make is we're looking at 10 years into the future. By definition, that's not going to be the way things turn out in 10 years. But we can begin to look ahead and imagine that, let's just assume that everything turned out exactly as these assumptions and projections as stated. 10 years from now, if you look at the very bottom line of this general fund chart, you would have a fund balance of 102%, which is lower than it is now, but still pretty healthy. Okay. The fire fund, same type of thing. We're looking out into the future. The fire fund is primarily, it receives tax revenue levy 2.5 mils. That was just approved by, 2.25 mils. That was just approved by the electorate a couple years ago. This projection keeps that 2.25%. It was a 10-year ballot issue. That keeps us through 2031. Then you'll need to go back to the electorate to renew that. And you'll see at the very bottom, your fund balance as a percent of operating expenses is going down, 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 down. And that's probably as it should be. What we're really doing right now is collecting money every year to pay the annual contractual charge to the city for the provision of those services and starting to begin to save money for a new fire truck that we purchased a couple years ago, so that in 2045 or somewhere thereabouts, we'll have money on hand to buy a new fire truck. And what you'll probably surmise is that come 2031, when you go back to the electorate for a renewal, you're probably going to need to increase that millage. But that's still 10 years out. You've already had a vote. It's 2.25 mils for the next 10 years. But we can, by having these long-term projections, we can look at a piece of paper and begin to anticipate, even 10 years from now, the next time we renew the fire millage is going to need to be a little higher than it is today. So, the EDA, and this is, the reason we're doing these long-term projections is because we're assuming that the development plans in the east and the west are going to get renewed. And you've taken action to advance that tonight through your first reading, and hopefully that ordinance gets changed. If it does not, I think it's next year, it's the last year that the EDAs would receive any revenue, and this thing could just be thrown away because the EDA wouldn't need to exist anymore without any money. Again, assumptions are outlined at the bottom left. In the East EDA, it's the second to the last assumption that I want to kind of point out. EDA is primarily a project-driven entity or a body. They're always working on projects as opposed to annual operating expenses. So in 2023, we are through 2023, we're projecting funding on projects of $450,000. If you look under column 2023, right above the total expenditure line item. And then you'll see that project number begin to decline. And that's declining so that we can maintain some fund balance. You'll see in these projections, 2031, the fund balance in the EDA is $124,000. They do have some annual operating expenses, so we need to keep some money for those. So it'll be up to the EDA to decide what projects to spend it on. They'll be cognizant of their available resources, and to the extent that taxable values go out more than 1%, then there'd be more resources available for the EDA. The West EDA, similar type of situation, although in this particular case, you see starting in 2023, a project amount of $380,000, and that's flat through the next 7 years. And so there's differences between the East and the West EDA. The East has been around longer. It has had more things to do because of where its district is located. The West is a little newer. It's not as developed already. And so from where they stand financially today, on a relative basis, they have a little more opportunity to, with additional confidence, be looking forward and planning for projects. Brand new this year is this next sheet, and it's a larger sheet, so you'll need to unfold it. But we've introduced into the budget book, at least, some of this information has been around longer than that, but it hasn't been in the budget book as prominent, is a capital improvement plan. And there's 3 sections to this. The top section is the general fund. The middle section is the water fund, capital projects looking forward. Partly because they know they should, partly because the Eagles of the world and the EPAs of the world have passed legislation over the last decade trying to force systems to look further ahead. So there are documents that are updated in some cases every year, in other cases every 5 years. A lot of these studies that you end up approving throughout the course of a year, asset management plans and things like that. In part, what those plans are doing is forcing the utility department to look at their system today, assume certain changes going on into the future. How is your water and sewer system going to handle those changes? And in fact, put together a plan to provide funding so that hopefully 30 years from now, we won't have a system, and we won't, that is decrepit and falling apart like you see throughout the country, and particularly throughout Michigan, particularly in the southeast part of the state, where, you know, they can't have a rainfall without a complete disaster on their hands. Just a couple inch rainfall, you know, they don't need 7 inches to.
Some of these are good ARPA funds.
So I'm not going to go over any of that detail, but it is in your budget book, and I think it's in response to the board wanting to make sure that we were looking ahead. So now I'll get down into a little bit of the detail, not as much as in the budget book, but I'll just point out a couple things. As it relates to the general fund, the operating mills were made at 1 mill, just like they've been for the last several years. Total appropriations of $2.6 million. We've looked at state shared revenue, that's projected to be flat. New this year is a Mission Creek drain special assessment. The other part is actually getting the work done because you have limited resources internally, staffing-wise, to manage all that. But we are going to try to increase our focus on that next year. There's money in the budget for what's called a cost allocation study. The general fund supports all these other funds in some manner. This board helps support the water fund, the sewer fund, the EDA fund, the west and east, the fire fund. All these general fund expenses, you can charge some of these other funds a proper allocation to recoup some of your expenses in the general fund that are actually being provide us information to help us move forward. There's money budgeted in the general fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, and maybe I'm missing somewhere because it seems to be budgeted everywhere, for an alternative energy study. That's a big item from the board's perspective as we've discerned it administratively. So we'll have a study done to see what kind of opportunities exist for alternative energy for our parks facilities, our water and sewer facilities, Township Hall, those kind of things. So there's money budgeted in the general fund for that. We're looking to update the stormwater management ordinance next year, so we're going to need some support doing that. And there is funding in the amount of $167,000 in the general fund to maintain and fund our commitment that we made several years ago to the Road Commission to support Lincoln Road. In the EDA fund, they're being asked to appropriate $960,000. There's money in there to try to stand up a grant program we've been talking about for the small businesses within the EDA. You'll see that same thing in the West EDA. Pump station number 1, I think we're going to finally be able to get some movement on that. That's budgeted for in the East EDA. They've indicated their support for that project a couple years ago. We've gone through a couple bid exercises. The numbers were quite large. That in part was why we recommended purchasing that property at 5800 Pickard that you were apprised of a little while ago. That's now closed, and so the work will begin to get done on that parcel, and as part of replacing that pump station, it will also be likely to be moved further south, and that's all EDA and sewer fund business. Also, sidewalk money is budgeted for in the East DDA, $175,000. I mentioned the site improvements at 5800 Picker. We're going to demo the building. We're going to get rid of that sign. Try to make that property a little more attractive to sell it for development. Move our pump station. We'll have plenty of room to work. That should lower the cost of rehabbing that thing because the workers won't be in such a tight, confined space. And then, of course, the annual and recurring programs are all funded in that budget. The EDA will be asked at their October, I believe it's 19th meeting, they'll be asked to consider their budget, to approve it, and with that approval, to recommend that the Board of Trustees approve it once you get around to taking that action. So the East EDA will be dealing with their portion at their October meeting.
Mark, what was the Packard? You skipped that one. $250,000 being recommended to improve Packard Road?
So that's the area, the valley
expanded-
construction, all that area up in there.
Right, right.
And so what we're wanting to do is first get the East EDA district expanded to include that area. So then we can devote some dollars to that area to try to begin improving those roads with the help of the road commission and other people, so that at the end of the day, so to speak, we'll have some roads up there that are sufficient for
Right,
industrial development.
right.
So that's what's going on there.
Okay, that's what I thought. I know Rodney and I talked about it.
That's a big deal.
Okay.
Where did I stop? West EDA, total appropriation, so this is down in this area, $762,000. The West EDA, again, is, they've been sitting on $330,000 for contribution to the Lincoln Road project. That is budgeted again this year. Back in 2018, we would occasionally talk about when the north end of Lincoln Road would get done from the bridge north to M20. Nobody's talking about that anymore because we're still,
Right.
messing around with the south end. A lot of funds being recommended in the budget to support improvements along Remus Road down to Bradley, which is where our corporate limits more or less are. Sidewalks, intersections, the sidewalk from the Lux up north to here, all that's part of that line item. And FY '22 projecting a year-end fund balance of $1,059,000. As it relates to the sewer fund, I'd mention that applies both the sewer and the water. The budget, well, I mentioned that the rates had been, the recommended rates are a result of the cost of service study that was done a couple years ago. The reason we did the cost of service study was to isolate 3 or 4 bogeys, if you will, targets of certain financial measures within those 2 funds. You may remember that. How, what's our target operating cash? What's our debt service ratio? What's our operating income? Those kind of things. And there's bands that we want to remain within, that if we do from a financial perspective, we're comfortable with the respective funds. And this budget recommendation has been run through those models, and all of the financial targets within those, we remain within those bands of those several financial targets. So it's a good, it's kind of a good proof of the budget. Total appropriation of just under $5 million. Talked about the rates. Won't belabor that. You'll see money in the sewer fund, 2 different places for the alternative energy study. $40,000 in this case, because those areas consume quite a bit of power. Briefly describe some capital maintenance projects within the sewer fund. We have our annual lift station maintenance program budgeted a little over $100,000. We'll be continuing with the manhole relining and sewer main repair projects. We're kind of doing that in phases, so there's money budgeted for that. We're particularly focusing on pump station 9 and 2 this year. You probably recall it, each year there's a different pump station number that sort of stands out, and so that's what's going on there. In terms of new capital, pump station 1 this year, partner funding between EDA and the tribe, who's already contributed some money for that project. We have a current grant application sitting with them to asking for additional funding. The Vector truck you'll see in here, we've removed it from the projected activity in '21 so it'll just flow to fund balance and then be appropriated in FY '22, $425,000. $30,000 to begin replacing air release structures within our sewer system. I had no idea what these were until I asked. But similar to your in-home plumbing, you need venting, you need air to let things flow, gravity and whatnot. And so there's a whole series of these apertures or whatever they're called throughout the system. So we're going to begin to rehab those. Moving on to the water fund, total appropriation of just over $2.6 million. There's funding for year 2 of the implementation of the cross connection control program that also had the lead copper inventory component to it. So that was a multi-year contract you approved a year or so ago. So year 2 is budgeted for that, as is funding budgeted to replace identified, I don't think we've identified any yet, we've identified one lead service line that we'll be replacing. So as we identify those, we have some money in the budget this year to replace them. And then there are some components to some of the fire hydrants that contain some lead components that we'll also begin replacing with part of this funding. Capital maintenance, wells generally, and well number 3 in particular, money budgeted to clean and do some routine on-time maintenance to those facilities, some routine recurring water tower maintenance so that these facilities remain up to our standards. Some new capital expenditures, some money spent for security, cameras, fencing around Lincoln Road Tower, iron removal at the Meridian Treatment Plant. This is a rollover from '21. The high-speed pump that was budgeted for in 2021, we're having to bounce to 2022, and that's imagine, and although we don't need to get into it tonight, that I could imagine either a special study session or meeting an hour and a half before a regular meeting, where you have specific questions on certain line items. You'll have all the line item detail in the book. And there's notes. I'll just flip it open for you to see. Where we think there's explanation warranted for some of this line item, you'll see it in the blue area. That's where there's additional detail versus just a GL line item with some numbers.
The book you're referencing, that's the 21 book, correct?
It's in the 21 book, and the one I just showed you is my copy of the 2022 recommended
Which we'll
budget.
get later.
I don't possess a 2020.
That's
That's
what's
what the
at
printer-
That's
what's at the printer.
You should get by
Oh,
the end
I'm
of this
sorry.
week.
Very good.
And it exists in the electronic format
Yeah,
too, that
right.
colored thing, but, yeah. With that, at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions related to that presentation.
Who will be conducting the alternative energy study?
We don't know yet, we'll have to bid that out.
Okay, we're gonna bid it out for the whole project, like all of them, or just pieces?
We haven't gotten through the specifics of how we're gonna manage that. We have budgeted in total, I wanna say, $80,000. There's 40,000 in the sewer fund, I wanna say 20 in water, which would be 60, there's 20 in the general, 80. We're just kind of taking a stab at that. But before we bid that work out, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna wanna roll it out. And,
Sure.
but we haven't got to that point yet.
And then, how long do you think that might take to get that study done? How long does that kind of stuff take?
I don't know.
I don't either, I'm just curious.
By the time the budget's approved, then, call it January 1. If this, I would like to hope that we would have the results of the study before year end. But it'll take a while, for us to, start getting into it, and then developing specs and bidding it out and reviewing those bids, and then and then reviewing the results. And that's just a study. One of the outcomes of that study presumably would be what forms of alternative energy may you want to take a look at as opposed to what currently you're using.
So nothing would really,
No.
if we did decide, well, realistically, mid-2023, before, if we decided to do something, maybe mid.
The easy stuff maybe, beginning to buy a fleet that was powered by vegetable oil or something, I don't know. But this is not about changing fluorescent to LED light bulbs. This is about powering a water plant and a sewer plant with something other than electricity. So this would be big stuff, and it would be big dollars. But we don't have that information now. And in the meantime, we are doing the little things. We have motion detected light switches. We are changing to LEDs.
Thank you.
So, our manager mentioned meeting one-on-one or, having your questions addressed as you go through this. I would ask that, as members do that, questions that you think would have interest to other board members, that we ask those questions again for the benefit of our other trustees. Because even though you know the answer now, sometimes it's helpful for us all to hear that, I wish I'd thought of that question, but I didn't, and I'm really glad to hear the answer. So take notes of things that you're having questions of so that we can have that for all of us.
And I mean, the way I would operate that, and I hope people come in and take on that invitation. It hasn't really occurred in the past, but if somebody, Trustee Bill, spends an hour with me in the office talking about the budget and asking questions, and I'm providing answers, I am going to essentially record that
Sure.
for my own benefit, and then also I would distribute that to the rest of the board on my own initiative as well. Because I know if one has the question, probably more than one does.
I know one thing I'd like to see in this, I'd like to see the clerk's salary increased with all the stuff that's going on with elections, you know, with all the absentee voter registration forms and everything that clerks go through. I mean, I know going to those council of governments meetings, I went to one just before COVID hit, and they couldn't believe that our clerk wasn't full-time. So I think we should increase the clerk's salary.
I agree.
I don't know was that in the salary thing that we had before? The
It's
salary
on-
study?
If you look on your budget, when you get there, it was about the last page. It tells, he has a summary of what everybody makes.
Yeah, but I mean, that salary, the average
Compensation study?
salaries- Yeah, wage study, whatever.
Yeah,
Was that
the-
in there?
Compensation, yeah, look at it.
Classification
Well-
of well, I don't care.
But yeah,
Good answer.
that's,
Yeah.
Are you not in that range? or
No.
You're not
Well-
anywhere in that range at all?
And let me add to that, and I believe that study was done prior to
I was just gonna say.
28, it was about 2018, but it was before we really were doing absentee voting. which
Correct.
Was it a result of Prop 2 or Prop 3 in 2018? So it didn't affect us until 2019 election, correct? The absentee stuff?
yeah, and it just,
And that I think more, and correct me if I'm wrong, that more than anything has probably changed the demands on your office.
yeah.
As it relates to the elected department heads, and when you start talking about changes in salary for non-bargaining, you will end up talking about the rest of the Board of Trustees. I just know it. You'll end up talking about the other elected department head, supervisor, treasurer. And so you need to be conscious of the context that you'll have this discussion in. We did go through a compensation study a couple years ago. We implemented that, and we adjusted for such things as a township manager form of government versus a non-township manager form of government. So it's, because it was brought up, I'm just simply saying that you want to be deliberate, thoughtful when you start talking about changes in salary, because it'll trigger a lot of other things. So you just want to go through a process correctly.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, thanks Sherry. I think she helped probably too.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that was in my notes. I wanted to thank the whole staff, and I fumbled it with the Vector truck and John and Kim, and I just fumbled it now with Sherry and the rest of the organization. Everybody participates in the development of this, and the board, and so I thank you for that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, thanks for all your work. We good?
Okay.
All right. That takes us to final board member comment. I started with you for board reports. No, I started with Trustee Howe, we'll start over here.
Just one comment, I think we made a very important, well, a couple comments. Mark, thank you for being very thorough on the 2022 budget recommendations. I think we made a very important vote tonight for not only the people in this community that we represent, but also our staff with the Vector truck. This is a very important tool for this township, and I'm glad to see the way the vote went. Also, I just wanted to touch base, training now becomes very important for the staff on this truck. We can't just send guys out there willy-nilly, and, I mean, we know that, Kim knows that, we've talked about that, John and I talked about that, and Kim, on our last meeting. And I just want to bring it up to the board members that we definitely want to support whatever I believe cost or what we're going to come up with in the next few years in this projected plan of getting everybody trained. I think that's very important for the staff to be properly trained on this piece of equipment, because it's going to be around for the next 35 years, right, John? And John for the next 15. Thank you.
Trustee Bills?
I'm really happy that we were able to put in the 10 grand for the water aquatic facility development board, whatever it is, and authority. And I think that's gonna be really cool. I remember back when we had the Island Park pool, and it was just it was great, you know. I think it would be really great, so. That, and I appreciate the new budget information, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor Manager. Thank you very much for that, and all the staff. And great meeting, everybody. I think, I hope we can get rid of this litigation we keep having, so, that's all I got.
Trustee Therian?
Tonight I'd like to read an email that was sent in by a citizen. It was sent in by Ben Gunning, 2270 East Broomfield Road, Union Township, Michigan. The heading is Pat DePriest Legal Expenses. Charter Township of Union Board of Trustees. Good afternoon, trustees. I request that this correspondence be read during the 5-minute public comment period at the evening's Wednesday, October 13th meeting of the Board of Trustees. I will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. I'm writing this correspondence in reference to a decision made by this board to discontinue the legal support for the township's former assessor of record, Patricia DePriest. Ms. DePriest was acting as assessor for Union Township when the lawsuit filed by the Pung family was filed. She was representing Union Township when she was exposed legally to this litigation. The current Isabella County Treasurer, Steve Pickens, is also a defendant in this suit. The Isabella County insurance provider is supporting the legal defense. The Union Township insurance provider made a decision to not support Ms. DePriest. The previous board made the decision to support Ms. DePriest in her legal defense because she was operating as the legal agent for the township. Former longtime trustee Phil Micus made reference to the fact it didn't matter if the employee was either current or former. If they were working for the township at the time of the exposure, then the township should cover their legal expenses. Mr. Micus and I did not agree on many things, but this is one that we did have common belief. It is of my opinion that this decision needs to be revisited. The situation was caused by a judge making a ruling that was contrary to state tax laws. The assessor and treasurer were put in a position of violating their oath and state of Michigan tax laws or the decision of a tribunal judge. Mr. Priest and Mr. Pickens both followed the letter of the law and simply needed the plaintiff to sign a principal residence exemption affidavit. The decision of the Board of Trustees has put Ms. DePriest in a situation of undue financial hardship. The correct moral and ethical decision would be for this board to reinstate her coverage until this litigation has been settled. It is not in the Board of Trustees or the Township's administration's purview to make a decision on anyone's guilt in this matter. That is for the court of law to decide. Respectfully, Ben Gunning. Thank you.
You good?
Yes.
Treasurer
Nothing.
Rice?
Nothing. Yep.
Trustee Howe?
I want people to get out and get vaccinated. I want life to come back to normal, so please get out and do that. James, on what you just read, I've got 3 or 4 phone calls in the last couple of days, texts, emails. I think we might have to go back through and talk about this again.
What were your emails about?
Why we aren't supporting Pat DePriest.
So these people want you to?
Yes.
Okay.
I've had the same.
Nobody's called me. Nobody's written to me. Never heard anything.
I'm done.
Thank you, Bill. Clerk Cody?
No comment.
And I don't have anything tonight either, other than thanks for the comment on the vaccination. I agree, people get vaccinated. Helps protect our kids. By Howe first. To adjourn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to adjourn passes unanimously.